Still actually at 5:59. I'm going.
Kings Local Schools Board of Education regular meeting to order. Mr. Furness, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Belfram,
Here.
Ms. Cowan,
Here.
Mr. Egan, here. Ms. Phillips,
Here.
Ms. Walter.
Here.
Could you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Furness?
Ms. Cowan,
Yes.
Mr. Egan, yes. Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Ms. Walter,
Yes.
Mr. Belfram.
Yes. Next on the agenda are reports and presentations from Mr. Sears.
Is it on, D? There you go. Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. Two very special presentations for us this evening that we want to take an opportunity to celebrate some of the amazing things that are going on in our school district. So I've invited, and I'd like to bring Ms. Jennifer Arlinghouse, Ms. Debbie Moore, and Maureen Mills up here to join me up by the podium for a few minutes so we can embarrass you and celebrate you. So, members of the Board of Education and community, I'm surrounded here by three of the most amazing individuals that we have in our school district. Over the course of this past year, we have been challenged with a lot of issues and a lot of things, one of which is providing necessary food and meals to students that are in need. Jennifer and Debbie and Maureen have worked countless hours with significant amounts of student help, student input, and many volunteers through working with a lot of different vendors since June to distribute over 40,000 meals. You probably have an exact number, you'll tell me in a second. Over 40,000 meals this summer for students that are in need in our district. I think that we owe them a round of applause. This was done at Joshua's Place, as well as our South Lebanon Community Center and some of our schools at Columbia Intermediate, where we had every Monday there was a pickup. I had the opportunity to visit and watch and see just this massive team of people and the graciousness of our families that showed up each week to receive the necessary meals each week. They provided a lot of food, rain or shine. The curbside meal team met the challenges in packing, distributing meals for our community each week at Columbia. I want to take a second to thank King's Food Service Director Jennifer Arlinghouse, Assistant Director Debbie Moore, and King's High School Food Service Director Maureen Mills for their tremendous work and working tirelessly to ensure that our students were provided with healthy meals during the entire pandemic. Amazing work by these ladies, and let's give them a round of applause. Jennifer would like to say a few things.
Please do.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sears. I feel privileged and honored for this opportunity to speak and just share with you in general, we feel grateful to have had this opportunity, certainly through the support of the federal government and the Ohio Department of Education. This program really developed upon the onset of COVID when we closed in March of 2020. That's when our program really began. And we started feeding kids through the course of the school closure. And then it continued through the summer of 2020 and ultimately through the entire school year last year, providing meals for our remote learners and in closing in July of this school year. So in general, I don't want to take credit for this. Ultimately, it was my team and a team effort. Primarily, the two that are here tonight were the sole runners of this program, but we didn't do this alone. Our support system that we have had with this program for several years is actually a program that is supported by Joshua's Place. And I'm happy to see that they're here tonight. We've been partnering with them for a number of years to do summer camp. So in addition to doing the COVID relief meals, we are able to do a summer feeding program as well through Joshua's Place. So I just wanted to speak to thank my team because ultimately they were the backbone behind this. I'm just the bystander. So Debbie, I really want to thank you as well as Maureen Moon. They were the key players to this. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sears.
So I'm going to ask Dana Martin to come up and she has our next presentation. But, you know, this is an example of individuals in our district that recognize the needs that our kids have on an individual level and exhausting ourselves trying to make them successful, giving them everything they need to be successful, not only with the proper nourishment, but just to have the opportunity to learn and to be invested in our district. It's tremendous work recognizing these are the individual needs that we, and exhausting everything we can to make kids successful. This is what Kings is about, and I'm really glad to recognize those folks. Dana Martin's going to share another example of some awesome work that goes on at our district.
Well, and I have to thank Jennifer because she kind of set me up for Joshua's Place. So Kevin and Nona, thank you for being here as we recognize some of our South Lebanon teachers, some of our staff, and Joshua's Place. So our community partner, Joshua's Place, has been supporting the Kings Local School District for many years. This summer, they hosted a reading recovery program that provided reading remediation for Kings students. South Lebanon elementary teacher Amanda Way, and I know Amanda's here, we're going to bring her up in a few minutes, first approached Joshua's Place program director Susan Simendinger with the idea of a summer reading program. Due to the pandemic, we knew many of our students were behind in reading. So South Lebanon reading specialist Michelle Oakes, I think Michelle is here. No, okay. Trained Joshua's Place volunteers in the school's phonics flashcard program, then identified students participated in the reading recovery program for 2 days a week with our one-on-one tutoring. And we have some South Lebanon teachers that were also here tonight. They participated weekly by reading to students and doing a STEM activity every week with the students. So Dawn, we have a video we're going to watch about the program, and then we'll bring people up to recognize them.
We've always provided lunch for the kids here in the community. We partner with the school district for that. But after talking with the teachers at SLE this past school year, there really was some things that we could do to help keep the kids reading, keep their reading skills up. We have this great program that was started at SLE with Amanda Way reaching out to the teachers there. Every Wednesday, a teacher from South Lebanon Elementary comes. We have 2 grade levels that the kids are in. It's kindergarten through 2nd, and then we have 3rd through 5th. And the kids come, they do a fun reading activity with the South Lebanon Elementary teacher. They do some type of STEM project. And quite honestly, the teachers are like rock stars here. The kids look forward to them being here every Wednesday. And those teachers have been doing that since the beginning of summer as well. We worked with Michelle Oakes, the reading specialist at South Levine Elementary, and she came down and trained our volunteers. At this point, we have about 15 kids that come Monday through Wednesday, and they receive 1 hour of phonics training. And they work with tutor flashcards and working on their phonics just to keep reading skills. So about 16 hours of tutoring they have gotten over the summer. And it's one-on-one tutoring for their fluency and phonics. So last summer we didn't have camp. So we were closed. We were in the mode of helping families with lunches and meals. This year, it is completely switched. We're hearing from the schools that kids are, I think we're up to 2 years behind in reading. So we wanted to mobilize our volunteers to what can we do to help with that? How can we do COVID relief that's not food, and that's keeping the kids reading and keeping their skills up over the summer and get them reading ready for school.
Okay, Susan, that was pretty awesome. So come on up, Susan. Amanda, come on up. I'm going to recognize some other people. I'm not sure if there's anybody else here, but if I call your name, call them on up. So Susan and then Amanda, we're a big part of this program, right? We've got Michelle Oakes, Jennifer Wesley, Rachel Manley, Brooke Blount, Susie Burdine, Eva Garcher, Christine McCarran, Jamie Fox, and Andrea Cox all believed, came this summer, volunteered, helped out, did all of that stuff you were talking about. So thank you both very, very, very much. We really appreciate all of your work, and I know our students do too. So thank you again.
Next on the agenda, I don't believe we have any legislative updates. So I believe next is public participation. And before we continue, may I have a motion to exempt ourselves from policy this evening of our 30-minute time limit, given the list of people that we have?
I will make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Furness?
So just to clarify, this is a motion and a second to suspend rules for hearing of the public beyond 30 minutes this evening.
Yes, sir.
All right, very good. Mr. Egan?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Ms. Walter?
Yes.
Mr. Belfram?
Yes.
Ms. Cowan?
Yes.
King's Local Board of Education encourages all parents, staff members, and community members to attend meetings and encourages visitors to participate in their meetings. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to state his or her reason for addressing the board. We ask that speakers avoid personal attacks on individuals during their public address to the board. If an individual has an issue with an employee, we ask that you request a private meeting with the superintendent or that employee's direct supervisor. Please keep in mind that Board of Education meetings are held so that the board can conduct their business in public. The board president is the spokesperson for the board and may need to consult with other board members in order to respond to the public. If a question from the public can be answered immediately, it may be. However, if time is needed to study the issue, the board may choose to make a statement at a later date. And with that, our first speaker is Kim Grant.
Thank you so much for giving everybody a chance to speak tonight. It's greatly appreciated, board. Not every board's doing that, so we do appreciate you listening. First, I would like to thank the board for listening to the community and not placing a levy on the November ballot in these very uncertain times. Between the economy and COVID, there are so many concerns. We need to work together and have a conversation about issues that affect our community and our children. I recently became a grandmother of twin girls. And with that, I've been reflecting on my childhood memories. And I remember sitting in front of the TV and listening to Martin Luther King. I've got a dream speech. He talked about the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and the American Dream. He dreamed of the day when all God's children, Black, white, Jews, Gentiles, Protestants, and Catholics, would join hands and sing the words, "Free at last." He dreamed that they would sit at the table of brotherhood. He continued with the powerful and moving words, "I have a dream that my 4 children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but the content of their character." Yes, the world of 2021 is far from perfect, but I believe most people agree with the views of Martin Luther King. We believe that America is about individual equality and equal opportunity for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all. I'm asking the board tonight to stop this movement of critical race theory in our schools, which is defined not by individualism, but by defining people by the color of their skin. Some of us are the oppressors and guilty of privilege, and others are the oppressed. This mindset goes against everything Martin Luther King dreamed for his children's future. It pushes Marxism, resentment, and blame. It is reshaping our schools to destroy our society and the minds of our children. This is not America. This cannot be King's. Please adopt a strong civics curriculum of American history. Yes, America has had its setbacks and failures. Racism exists in America, but we must never lose sight that we are a country of immigrants, that we believe in equal opportunity for all and the American dream.
Next is Ms. Deb Gill. Did I say that right? I finally got it right.
Why are we implementing critical race theory, or CRT, in our curricula when it began as a college-level, legally focused theory? Here's some history. CRT evolved from critical legal studies back in the 60s during the civil rights era by scholars who claimed that the law was biased and rooted in racism. CRT is an academic discipline formulated in the 90s built on the framework of identity-based Marxism. It was at Harvard that Derek Bell, known as the father of critical race theory, taught what eventually became CRT using his own textbook to teach his law students. From law school professors, universities, and academic journals, it has since spread to other educational teachers. Now, universities are places where all ideas should be discussed and openly debated. But attendance at colleges and universities is voluntary and is intended for adults. Children's attendance in K through 12, however, is mandated by law, and this group of protected minors is considered very impressionable and vulnerable to potential indoctrination. Unfortunately, our colleges and universities have become the training grounds for translating this race-based theory into practice in our schools. This politically motivated set of doctrines has no place in K through 12 education. By doing so, you are indoctrinating our students with a theory that is not based on facts. CRT teaches that America is inherently racist, whose very foundation is based on racial oppression. It focuses on the idea that all students be required to see themselves not as individuals, but as a part of a group, forcing them into the role of oppressor or the oppressed. This theory's impact is overwhelmingly negative, promoting a victim mentality that interferes with creative thinking and healthy childhood interactions. By teaching our children that their school system, their country, and their peers are inherently racist, we are doing them great harm by facilitating unhealthy biases and preconceived notions. We are damaging the social and emotional development of our children by teaching them to see racism in every aspect of their lives. Teaching CRT in K-12 through 12 is indoctrination and thought reform, not education. If we sincerely care about our students' mental health, we shouldn't be teaching them to have feelings of guilt, shame, hopelessness, lack of individuality, and the impossibility of love and friendship across lines of difference. We should be fostering their resilience and their confidence so they can face their future as empowered, hopeful, and creative thinkers. We must return to teaching and focusing on fact-based subject matter. We should be teaching all of our students to aim for excellence, which provides a common standard for challenges of people of all backgrounds to achieve their true potential. Thank you.
Next is Mr. Scott Sheeter.
First off, I'd like to thank everybody for showing up tonight. It is great to see all these people at this meeting because we want some changes. I am here tonight to speak about the National Education Association's Resolution number 39 and the impact on the master contract between King's Education Association and the King School District. Some highlights of Resolution 39. Section A includes to share and publicize through existing channels information already available on CRT, what it is and what it is not. Have a team of staffers for members who want to learn more and fight back against anti-CRT rhetoric. Section B includes, we oppose attempts to ban CRT and or the 1619 project. Section C includes, it is reasonable and appropriate for curriculum to include CRT. Section D includes joining BLM and the Zen Education Project to call for a rally on October 14th, George Floyd's birthday, as a national day of action to teach lessons about structural racism and oppression, followed by one day of action that recognizes and honors lives taken, such as Breonna Taylor, Filipino Castillo, and others. And then Section E includes a virtual listening tour that will educate members on the tools and resources needed to defend honesty in education, including but not limited to tools like CRT. Now, looking at the King's Master Services Agreement, under Article 1, Section B, which is management rights. Section B4 states, management determines the overall methods, process, means, or personnel by which school district operations are to be conducted. And Section B7 states, management determines the overall mission of the school district. Section B10 states that management makes the rules and regulations by which students and employees of the board will be governed. That means the board makes the policies. So if the concepts and teaching of CRT aren't included in the approved curriculum or being taught otherwise by the teachers, if they follow the directive of the National Education Association and teach the concepts of CRT, are they not in violation of this Master Services Agreement? If this board truly believes that CRT is not being taught, then the board should have no problem in passing an anti-CRT policy. Thank you.
Next is Ms. Karen Burton.
Last month, I brought the NEA items number 39 that Scott just talked about to your attention. And I asked you to consider a resolution that would let the teachers and administrators know what you expect of them on October 14th and 15th, since they're being strongly encouraged to focus attention in the classroom on police officers killing Black people on that day. I noticed this issue was not mentioned at all in last week's working session. So the King's Education Integrity Team put together a proposed resolution for your consideration. The proposed resolution prohibits divisive concepts and all discrimination based on race, ethnicity, nationality, religion, political views, or sex. We've collected more than 100 signatures on a petition asking you to please consider the resolution. And I will give that to you. I keep hearing critical race theory is not taught in the schools. It certainly is a culture. These are some signs that were on the display terminals in the main lobby of the high school last winter. And this one, I mean, of course, CORE, Knights Organizing Against Racism, is a good thing. Nobody wants racism in King schools, and there have been incidents, no problem with organizing against racism. But these talked about microaggressions. Merriam-Webster Dictionary says a microaggression is a comment or an action that expresses a prejudiced attitude toward a member of a marginalized group, such as a racial minority. So when someone says, I don't see color, and this is on the display in the main area, then that is, they're saying this is a microaggression. You are being racist if you say I don't see color, because not seeing color is ignoring the problem. So the cultural competency lessons promoted by the Ohio Department of Education and the NEA require people to see people as white people, brown people, or black people. Seeing people as people without focusing on physical characteristics is presented as a problem that needs to be solved. And students are being told they must categorize people by their skin color. Another one was All Lives Matter. And this was shown as a problem of microaggression against Black people. Not seeing color is ignoring the problem. Many religious groups believe that all lives matter to their God. Therefore, all lives must matter to us. So this statement tells Christians, Jewish, Hindi, and Buddhist groups
That's 3 minutes.
that their religious beliefs are a problem that promotes racism.
Next is Mr. Dan Foley. Am I saying your name, last name right?
I'm here to encourage you to make the proper decisions for the school district and let you know there are more community members that will stand with you if you stand against those who want to push harmful policies onto our kids. One of these policies is mask mandates. Let's review the facts. There's no data to suggest masks work to prevent the spread of any respiratory virus, including COVID-19. The rise in cases where there are mask mandates and high compliance matches or is higher than in places where there is no mask mandate. Data suggests COVID poses almost no risk to children. 4.2 million children have tested positive for COVID. And how many of them died? 0.008%. That is before you stratifying the data for comorbidities or other ailments. Forcing kids to wear masks, sweat-soaked, dirt-covered, dirt-covered, spit-filled rags on their faces all day is abuse. Wearing these disgusting face coverings hurts their immune systems. This doesn't even take into consideration the harmful psychological effects of training kids to be afraid of their peers and ambient air. This doesn't even take into consideration the harmful effects it has on learning, namely not being able to see the teacher enunciate a word as they learn to read or learning how to interpret facial expressions. When you make decisions that are harmful to our kids to offer yourself political cover, you are a coward. When the Department of Health gives you guidance, what evidence are they providing? What data have they shown you to support mask mandates? I know the answer. It's none. The mask serves nothing more than a security blanket for adults who have a political agenda and or are trying to satisfy their delusional hypochondria. Do not require masks for my kids. As a message to everyone in this district who agrees with me, we need to stand together. We are the solution, and we must not just comply with the named policies in hopes of returning to normal. Thank you.
Mr. Sam Meisner.
Hi, good evening. put some thought into what I wanted to say today, so I'm just going to go ahead and read it. In Kings Local Schools, our mission has always been to provide our kids with an education that imparts honesty about who we are, integrity in how we treat others, and courage to do what is right. All our students deserve an age-appropriate and accurate history lessons, helping them to become critical thinkers that our community needs to make this a more just, prosperous, and equitable place. I am proud of this district's commitment to diversity and inclusion, and I'm concerned that it's recently been under attack. It's been very clear that the people in our community that want to be productive, and there are people who want to be destructive. The latter looks to help our students and community, like those that are here today collecting supplies for our community. The former consistently demagogue our schools, teachers, and other school staff and attack any movement that supports our district's priority around diversity and inclusion. Tonight's rally is one of those false narratives that are used to wedge in an attempt to attack and divide our school community. One of those false narratives is that King's teachers are teaching kids, specifically white kids, that they are inherently racist or trying to shame them for who they are or the color of their skin. This is unequivocally false. And it's slander to suggest otherwise. It's simply not happening in this district. The folks who oppose truth in education, none of whom are educators, want to tell educators how to do their jobs. I am personally fed up with those who know nothing about educating students telling us how to educate students. I am fed up with listening to people who oppose truth in education, casting doubt on the integrity of teachers who love their students and want to prepare them for the future. We have legislators, some local and some in Columbus.
Please let him continue.
We have legislators, some local and some in Columbus, who have voted against appropriate resources and funding for our schools for years and are now spreading lies about the lessons on our history, culture, and political system that our teachers deliver as part of an accurate and state-adopted 21st century curriculum. They will say it's about one thing. What it's really about is anti-public education agenda. I urge our community to reject the division they are fomenting and promote positive and productive steps towards making our schools one of the best in Southwest Ohio. Those who oppose truth are trying to divide and distract and tell a story about Kings that is completely false. These meetings should be used to discuss and debate how we improve our district, not a forum for national political arguments or a sounding board for dog whistle politics. To those who oppose truth in education, stop attempting to intimidate and censor our teachers. Leave your politics out of my school. Now let me tell you about the King story I know well. I have the privilege of seeing every day the teachers who work diligently and with integrity to provide students with an honest and reflective education, an education that understands and promotes multiple perspectives and experiences that have shaped the country and the world. They are trying to prepare them to be productive members of our society. And as long as there's breath in my lungs, I'm going to have their back. Thank you very much.
So let me take a brief pause. And I'd just like to reiterate that if we could please respect everyone's time. I know we have a lot of passionate people here. And you all have very passionate opinions and you want your time. We want to give everyone 3 minutes. And I'd like to see us continue to do that without people, interrupting the people at the microphone. If we could do that, please, appreciate it. Next up, Mr. Kevin Hudspeth.
Hi, my name's Kevin. I have 3 kids in the district. I just wanted to come and share some quick thoughts on this whole CRT issue. Just because I saw there was a protest and looks like there's some folks that are have some opinions on it. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert in critical race theory. I'd never even heard of it until earlier this year. I did sort of skim through that stamped book that I know some folks were upset about a couple months ago. And I'll say I didn't agree with everything in it. There were parts of it that seemed like fair points, probably parts of it that seemed a little bit out there to me, but that's completely fine. I mean, like, I would be shocked if everything that you guys concluded in the curriculum was something that I wholeheartedly agreed with. Like, that just isn't how life works. That isn't how the world works. So, if when we get to a point where those types of things are on my kids' reading list, then I'm going to talk to my kids about it. I'm going to share my thoughts on it. I'm going to let them share their thoughts, and that too will be fine. And I guess one of the points that I feel like kind of gets glossed over here a lot is that if you have real strong opinions on something like this, this is the time you want your kids to be exposed to it. When you're still part of their daily lives, when you're still talking to them every day, when you're still guiding them, like this is when you want them to be exposed to it in this type of environment, you know, especially if you have strong opinions on it, because they're going to be exposed to these eventually, whether it's at college, in the workplace, they're going to be exposed to all of these ideas. You know, and I pulled a quote from the school board's website, talking about how it's the school board's vision to equip our students with the increasingly complex knowledge and skills that will prepare them for life, adult success. And I just don't know how you do that if you start removing things from the curriculum that they're definitely going to encounter and definitely going to need. They're going to need to know how to discuss these exact issues, especially if they disagree with them. They're going to need to know how to communicate their disagreement respectfully in ways that doesn't create confusion. And having these conversations in school is how they learn to do that. At the end of the day, the world is what it is, whether we like it or not. We all have to live in it together. And if we want our kids to succeed, then we need to help them navigate these exact types of issues. So that's my point. Thank you.
Next is Mr. I think it's David, is it Steiner? Stiltner.
I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on CRT either. I'm just going to give you a couple examples of things that in my opinion, they raised red flags at my kids in the conversations we had about their days at school. First of all, I'll just tell you that I am 5th generation military. I have the great love for this country. I do not expect my kids to be taught that America is perfect, but I also don't want them to be taught that it's imperfect or that it's a negative place, because it's a positive place in the world. And there's a lot less evil in this country that we have to answer for as a people than most other countries in the world. My 2nd grader came home to me one day and he said, "My teacher today told me that all white people used to hate all black people." And I said, "Oh, wait a minute now, buddy. I'm sure you misunderstood your teacher there or something." No, Dad. No, that's what she said. So that just raised a little red flag. But then he brought home a book from Sarah Albee, whose website says that she visits schools for $3,000, and she did visit this school. In that book, part of the wording that I took issue with, it said that Alexander Hamilton was raised next to a plantation where there were slaves. And then later in the book, it said Thomas Jefferson, who was his friend, had a plantation with slaves. And please don't get me wrong, someday me and my son are going to have a long conversation about man's inhumanity to man. But I do not need my 2nd grader being taught about slavery. It's not age appropriate. And it also hurts his own self-esteem, like he has some kind of a role in that, or he has something to be guilty for, which he most certainly does not. The only thing I'm going to add after that is he's asked me a lot of questions, most of which I either answer or try to. There's been one answer that he came home to me and asked me that I just didn't have an answer. He says, "Why is so much about blacks?" And that's a tough question for a 2nd grader to answer. And I didn't have an answer for that one. I just didn't. I want him to have a balanced education. I want him to understand that people are people. The color of their skin does not matter, will not matter in our house, in our family. It's not the way I want him raised. But I couldn't answer that question for him. Thank you.
Next, Mr. Jeff Chitwood.
Thank you. So I'm not an expert in CRT either, but I just wanted to share a couple observations. We have 6 kids. My 3 daughters are from a different country. They have a different skin color than I do. Where they're from, I was the oddity. Everybody stared at me during the adoption process. It took a few years. We actually moved to Kings in 2016. So we have 6 kids, 2 naturally, and then a little foster guy. But anyway, we moved here in 2016, specifically because we had heard of the English as a second language. Fantastic staff here, which I can attest to has been an absolutely gift to our family. But in the last year to 2 years, 2 of my daughters, principally they're 16 and 13, and you got to understand, they come from a place where police aren't in squad cars, they're in pickup trucks with 50 caliber machine guns, and they're wearing blindfolds because if they're off duty and people recognize them, they can be assassinated when they're with their families. That's where they come from. So coming here, this is like a dream, right? And they have kids, and this is from my girls' point of view, they have kids from all different countries in these classrooms, which for my girls is like a dream. Like, this is the best country in the history of the world. It's just their perspective. So my 13-year-old was at Columbia last year. She did a project on Dr. Ben Carson. And I guess what my heart would say, because again, I'm just a normal dad, 6, is he might be an interesting person to read. He came from a very harsh upbringing with not much, quote, opportunity, but he's the most renowned neurosurgeon like in the world, right? And it just struck me that my 13-year-old daughter, she was 12 when she did that. She's seeing through that. She's saying stuff to me like, Dad, why is there thousands of people coming into our country and not leaving our country, but yet everybody's rioting? That doesn't make sense to my daughters from a different country. It doesn't really make sense to me either. But I wanted to read one other quote. Hopefully it'll make sense. The only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision. To me, that makes sense in this topic. It was by Helen Keller, which brings another connotation with it. So thanks for everything that y'all do.
Next is Ms. Barbara Allen. Oh, that's quite all right, Mr. Allen. I think, given the number of people we have, we're going to stay within this evening. Next on the list is Mr. Josh Beckman.
Good now evening, board members and parents. Thank you so much for coming to this meeting and really caring about our students. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the law regarding face masks. As a reminder, only legislative bodies are able to make laws. That means you have to have a 2/3 vote in both the House and the Senate, and then governor's signature to make laws. Therefore, any health orders by the governor or the Warren County Health District or the Ohio Department of Health are not law. Pursuant to FDA 201H, face masks are regulated as a medical device and cannot be forced upon any individual. And according to ORC 4731.41 and 4731.34, even recommending someone wear a medical device such as a face mask constitutes the unlawful and unlicensed practice of medicine and is punishable as a 5th degree felony. Forcing any person to wear a mask to enter a school is violation of the federal civil rights law, Title II, that provides that in a place of public accommodation, the school must provide equal access to resources and facilities without discrimination. Making face masks mandatory is unconstitutional, especially when considering minors. Stop masking our children, especially those who are asymptomatic. Currently, the health district, Warren County specifically, and the Ohio Department of Health cannot and does not have the power to dictate your health decisions, and they will never have that power. Since as of August 10th, over 86% across the county are vaccinated over age 65. The at-risk population of students is protected. According to our county commissioners and agreed upon by our health district, there is evidence that should suggest that those who have had COVID have better immunity than those who have been vaccinated, and that is backed by the Cleveland Clinic. There is data that shows that Warren County is number 6 in the state for vaccinations and number 1 in Southwest Ohio. Children do not need to be vaccinated because there is no data that points that children are at risk of dying directly from COVID. The health district states that if a parent does not want their child to be vaccinated or wear a mask, they have that ability and they have that right. County commissioner stated that viruses mutate, as viruses mutate, they become more contagious and less deadly. It is so contagious that those who are vaccinated can actually get COVID. That is called a breakthrough case, and we have many across the county and the state. And as of August 10th, there are 1,046 people in hospitals. 3.9% of that number is actually due to COVID.
Your 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. White.
Okay. I just want to make my last comment.
Mr. Whiteman, Mr. 3 minutes.
Please do not mask our children. Thank you.
Next is Susan Carnity. Oh, Michael. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Susie. I grew up in the city of Cincinnati, over near the zoo as a small child. And I had Black friends on my street and at my school. And I can tell you that racism has to be taught. And it's allowed. And with critical race theory, the 1619 Project, whatever you want to call it, that book Stamped, or any of the other ones that I've seen at school board meetings and some of the other places I've been, like Forest Hills, where I raised my girls, that is teaching racism. And you all, if you're endorsing books like that in this school district, you should be ashamed of yourselves. I see critical race theory and the mask issue as basically the same thing. It's a liberal cocktail designed to destroy our culture, our community, our nation from within. And it's been going on for a long time. In 1962, they took prayer out of public schools. 1973, I was in the 2nd grade back then. 1973, my senior year in high school, we got abortion. Fast forward to 2015, same-sex marriage. Now you want to ram critical race theory, the 1619 Project, drag queen readings to kindergartners or nursery schoolers in our public libraries, little boys competing against little girls in grade school, high school, college, and now Olympic sports down our throats. If you allow this kind of stuff, it's on you as the educators, as the teachers, as the coaches. We are not
Just because I'm a Caucasian or someone is black or someone is brown does not make them a racist. It has to be in their heart. And it's taught. And if you allow these kinds of books into your school, you're part of the problem. So I'm asking you to come to your senses. The kids are at stake. Their lives are at stake.
3 minutes, Mr. Carmen.
Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Next one up. I apologize, I can't read the name.
Try the phone number. Phone number.
Yeah, okay, we'll do it by phone number. It's area code 740-525-6262.
My bad, my cursive is not the greatest.
How do you pronounce your name?
Haddon, H-A-D-D-N. Yes, sir.
That's all right. I grew up in the 740.
Oh, really?
Yes, sir.
Really? We're down in Monroe County.
Oh, I was in Pickaway.
Really? Yeah, I think I know where that is. Not super far. Anyway, good evening. My name is Haddon Rocker, and I'm a 15-year-old Ohio student here in the state. And, you know, I wanted to share some things with you from a student's perspective. You know, I've been taught from since I've been born that, you know, God created all men in the image of himself, and therefore all races are equal in his eyes. So that is what I have been taught. And also throughout my history of school, the majority of the years I've been in school, I'm a sophomore this coming year, I've been taught the dark history of slavery and the racism throughout the United States. But I believe we've come a long way since then. And, you know, I'm sure you guys have probably seen that throughout your schools and when you've gone to visit, you know, black kids and white kids sitting together and playing together at recess. That was something you didn't see very much back then because of the segregation and racism. But you see, I believe we've come in many, many strides. And a lot of people believe that. But I also believe that critical race theory pushes us back apart, because critical race theory does teach that racism is the framework of our society and that it is embedded into our legal and physical systems. If you wonder where I got that information from, Pete Buttigieg, I'm sure you've probably heard of the Secretary of Transportation, just said the other day that racism is physically built into the roads. So that's not a baseless claim. It also states that white people, being white automatically makes you a racist, and that capitalism is a construct of white racism. All those things, all horrible things. But, you know, I also want to direct your attention to Martin Luther King, as someone did earlier. And, you know, he had an amazing opportunity, even in highly segregated America. He actually was taken to Moorhead College in Georgia at age 15, which is how old I am until Monday, until Sunday. And he was able to grow and learn, and he rose to the top of his class and was elected class president over his predominantly white class, even in segregated America, because he had that opportunity. He actually said, I'd like to read you a quote of his, and he said that, let me find it right here. He said, I refuse to accept the view that mankind is so tragically bound to the starless midnight of racism and war that the bright daybreak of peace and brotherhood can never become a reality. I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word. I believe that too. And I'm blaming today's youth and today's students for slavery and for racism in the past is like blaming Asian students for Pearl Harbor or German students for the Holocaust. It's just, it's crazy. It doesn't make any logical sense. So I propose that we move forward throughout the state of Ohio and all the school boards, and right here, I promote moving forward, and I hope you will be with me on that. And I stand to move forward in unity and for equality and not equity, because I'm sure you know the difference. I'm all for discussions in your schools. I'm all for discussions about history, and I'm glad for them. But I thank you, and I hope you'll take a stand with us.
Next is The last name is Frank, so I apologize. I can't quite read the first name. I'm sorry, man. What's your first name? Joya.
Yeah, my first name is Joya, and I'm a parent of 3 kids that I currently homeschool. And one of the reasons why is because of the masks. Sure, there we go. I'm a parent of 3 kids. I currently homeschool. One of the reasons why is because of the masks.
Yeah.
So my middle daughter struggles a great deal. She just can't wear the masks. She has several issues, and exemptions are difficult. But personally, I don't believe that children should wear masks or be masked. I don't think it's good for them. I don't think it's healthy. I think that there's a lot of information out there that says the same. Last I checked, your guys' website said that you weren't going to mask children, but I know a lot of other schools are. So as hard as it can be to go against what everyone else is doing, I really hope that you stand by that. I know when a lot of other schools are saying, hey, we're all going to do this, jump on the bandwagon, do it too. It's important. It can be really difficult to go against the grain and to not say, yeah, everybody's doing it, let's do it too. But I really hope that you guys can do what's best for the kids and keep them as your first priority, because they can't see what's happening in people's faces and they can't hear. Everything is muffled. They can't understand the phonics. They can't understand when somebody is reading. They can't learn how to speak in public. It's so important that they see their teachers' faces. And I'll continue to keep my kids home and offer to help everybody else who wants to do the same until they can be out in the open with their teachers and not be afraid of them and learn how to speak and read and hear what's going on. I really hope that you guys can stay where you're at and not let other schools sway your own opinions.
Ms. Collins Schluter? No, you cannot.
I want to start out by explaining something that seems to get confused when we talk about whether critical race theory is being taught at King's. Critical race theory isn't a lesson or a class, and it's not going to be found in the K through 12 classes, at least not likely. The subject matter is too complex, like we heard earlier, and generally isn't actually taught until upper level college courses. In K through 12, it's the implementation of the critical race theories and ideals and everything from social standards that are taught to lesson plans and assignments. It's found in the hallways of King's when our marquee scrolls through Black Lives Matter slogans, permeating our students' minds with critical race theory, much like commercial ads do. It's found in the classrooms where critical race theory posters that advocate for reparations are left up all year long after the assignment that produced the work is over. CRT is found in how students are taught, what they are taught, and in the training of our staff and teachers. Quote, deconstructing white privilege in the classroom requires educators and students to understand the origins of whiteness and how the legacy of white supremacy endures. This is a 1.5-hour training session available on the King's local website and a DEI resource. It's important, quote, it's important that teachers emphasize intersectionality. We should be, quote, acknowledging and addressing how privilege contributes to oppressive systems at school and in their community, end quote. Intersectionality is a very new term for categorizing and prioritizing each of our unique physical characteristics according to how oppressed each of those characteristics make us. This is from a resource called Learning for Justice, formerly known as Teaching Tolerance. This piece was written in response to the racially motivated attack on Jussie Smollett, who, it was discovered, had orchestrated the attack on himself. This is on our website, complete with a button to conveniently turn this article into an instant lesson plan. This resource changed their name in order to better reflect the evolution, quote, of their work into social justice. And so they have evolved, as evidenced in the lesson plan found on our website, digging, quote, digging deep into social justice standards, end quote. Then there's the implicit bias test on our website. It's a 20-year-old speed test using word and picture association to train your brain to keystrokes. Then it claims you are implicitly biased by comparing your results to 20-year-old data, and then they switch up their parameters, and you can't rapidly overcome the automated response you've just developed through their speed test training. Be in favor of CRT or be against CRT. You're entitled to your opinions, but stop denying it's in Kings.
Mr. Ryan Mack.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Ryan Max. I'm a clinical psychologist. I have been a licensed child and adolescent psychologist in Ohio for the last 16 years. I am here to speak to you as both a mental health professional and as the parent of two boys who will be attending KME this year. And I'm here to tell you why I am so passionately opposed to another mask mandate. Unlike using terms like surge and things like protect the children, which are inducing fear in a lot of people, I form my opinions based on the data from the CDC and the Ohio Department of Health. And let's look at the exact data, which are readily available for anybody who wants to find them. In the United States, as of yesterday, there have been 432 COVID fatalities for ages 0 to 18. That comes out to an average of 288 per year for the country. Also, stated by the CDC, 2019 to 2020 flu deaths were estimated at 600 for the same age group. As of right now, on the CDC's COVID data tracker, the hospitalization rate for children has increased. Do you know what it's increased from? 0.3 out of 100,000 to 0.37 per every 100,000. The data overwhelmingly have shown us that for children, this is relatively comparable to the flu. That was not the same for older adults. We cannot apply a one-size-fits-all mentality here because this affects children at a much different rate than it does adults. Now let's look at my field, the mental health data, from the CDC as well, comparing suicide rates during the 6-month period with the pandemic to the same 6-month period beforehand. In teenagers, suicide rates have gone up 31% during COVID. In children, not teenagers, in children, up 24%. Now I'll tell you about my own group practice in Westchester. We average most of the time about 40 phone calls a day from parents wanting to initiate services with our clinicians. Since COVID happened, we've been averaging 150 to 200 phone calls per day from parents desperate to get their children in because of the massive spikes in anxiety, depression, behavior problems, social problems, academic problems, attention problems, and so forth. Children are telling us that they're having a hard time hearing classmates and teachers through masks. They're telling us they're having a hard time paying attention. They're having a hard time learning. They're having a hard time reading facial expressions. And as we know in psychology, preschool and elementary years are the most critical for developing your social and emotional and facial recognition with people. Affect recognition, as we call it.
That's 3 minutes, Dr. Max. He has 3 minutes.
My name is Ryan Max. Any one of you can look me up online, and I'm happy to answer any other questions you have.
Next is Josie Roya.
I'm here tonight as a concerned taxpayer, and I'm saying no to CRT. I became aware of CRT, and I was interested, just what are my tax dollars paying for? I was told it's not being taught here, but indeed it is. The Marxist book called Stamped was used this past school year. So I really wanted to educate myself. I've kind of gone back to civics and government class on my own. And so I bought the book and I marked it all over. It was a very difficult read. I'll read you just a little piece from this. And this is in regards to Abraham Lincoln. And it states, and when Civil War finally ended in April of 1865, on the 11th day of that same month, Lincoln delivered his plans for Reconstruction. And in that plan, he said what no president had ever said before him, that blacks, the intelligent ones, should have the right to vote. No wonder 3 days later, he was shot in the back of the head. So reading this book, and it's filled with that. It's like a poorly written, hate-filled diary. So I've been reading a lot, and my August edition of AMAC came, and there's an author in there, Robert B. Charles, who says there's 7 hard truths about CRT, and I'll share one here with you. The 7th being, CRT ignores data. Perhaps the biggest lie in CRT is that America is racist. No country in the world attracts more minorities than America. We are the magnet with the largest immigrant population in the world. 40 million Americans born elsewhere, most minorities, many African. By wealth, Black, Hispanic, and Asian Americans account for 25% of America's millionaires, proving the American dream, upward mobility, and capitalism. And Pew Research reports most Americans see racial diversity as good. So much for CRT. In the end, CRT is Marxism, pushing resentment, blame, guilt, fear, silence, and compliance. Do not buy it. Americans cleave by values, not skin color. Critical race theory is a disgrace. I am asking you, do not allow these classrooms to become political theater. Every parent and every citizen needs to find out what's being taught and how it's being taught and what's being used to teach it. Be a part of it. Think globally. We're just here in this little King's school district, but we have to act locally.
It's 3 minutes.
No CRT.
Next is Adam. I can't read the last name. It begins with a G. Okay. What's your last name, sir?
I want to thank you all for the opportunity to come and speak to the board. And I am the father of 3 students in the King's School District. I'm a U.S. Army veteran. I'm Hispanic. Family came up from Mexico 2 generations ago. Someone who loves my country and don't want to see the divisive concepts of critical race theory, which is based on Marxist critical theory, taught in our schools. So the teaching comes in a lot of different forms, as we've all heard tonight, and as we've studied and learned that it's the books that are being propagated throughout the schools. It's the signs, the messaging, those types of things. I'm someone, like I said, served in the military, went to combat twice, served with men and women of all different races, creeds, everything, and we all loved our country. And we all came from this basis of understanding of what is America here for? What are our founding principles? What are our founding documents? We all came through classes where we learned civics, those types of things. And we didn't have this indoctrination that was going on within the school system. And so I encourage the board to pass an anti-critical race theory, and you have tremendous support here from the local community if you do that. And both of my parents were teachers. And I remember talking to my dad one time, and I said, so Dad, tell me a little bit about your job. And he says, well, Adam, my job is to teach people how to think, not what to think. And and just equip young minds with the ability to do that. Now, will our students be, as they graduate from our school district, go on to college, will they be exposed to these things? Yes, but if they have the truth, if they have the civics, here's what our country was founded on, here are founding principles, and here's why we should take pride in being part of the greatest country. Thank God we said the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. That was awesome. It's great to hear that. But if we give them the right formation at this stage, then when they get off to college and they're exposed to other ideas, they can combat them with the truth. And I do encourage the board to pass an anti-critical race theory policy. Thank you.
Carolyn Testerman, Ms. Carolyn Testerman.
Hi, good evening. I am a parent of 3 children in the district. I actually just came from Columbia's open house before this. So I did have the opportunity to watch last week's working session. And Mr. Sears, you started by saying that the health and well-being of our students and staff is of the utmost importance to you. And I do agree that you believe that, and that you are committed to keeping our kids in school. I was very surprised when you followed that by saying that you would be a mask-friendly school district. The CDC, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the Ohio Department of Health are all strongly recommending masking in all K-12 schools to prevent the spread of this highly contagious Delta variant. Furthermore, based on the Ohio Department of Health's quarantine protocol, if you are serious about keeping kids in school, you will require masks to be worn. You also mentioned that the vaccination is the best layer of protection. I wholeheartedly agree. However, all students under the age of 12 are currently unable to be vaccinated. By not requiring masks be worn in the buildings, you are asking us to send our kids to school with no layers of protection. As you are aware from the emails that I sent you, I have a 3rd grader with a medical condition that makes her high risk for severe infection. By simply encouraging masks to be worn, you are leaving her vulnerable. Public education is supposed to be a safe place for all kids to learn and grow. However, by ignoring the advice of every medical institute, you are failing to provide this for our children, especially those who are medically vulnerable, like my daughter. Governor DeWine held a press conference today where he strongly urged school districts to require masks be worn in school. As you know, the governor, the Ohio Department of Health, and the Warren County Health District are unable to make this mandate due to the Senate Bill 22 that went into effect this June. It is solely up to you to protect our children. Thank you.
Next is Mr. Kevin Otto. Say your last name right, sir?
Yes,
Oh,
Otto.
okay.
How you doing? Good evening. My name is Kevin Otto. I'm a parent of 3 kids here at South Lebanon Elementary, twins that are 7 and an 8-year-old. Last week, I sent this board and the superintendent a letter outlining what I believed was the unconstitutional mandate from the CDC on, as you put in your recent guidance, that children will be required to wear masks on buses. Okay. My kids aren't wearing a mask on a bus. We've got a lot of people that came here tonight and have asked you not to mandate things. I'm telling you, my kids are not wearing a mask. You don't have the authority to have them wear a mask. Okay? It's obvious. The state doesn't have it. The federal government does not have it. Okay? They are trying to grant themselves that authority. If any of you, did any of you read my letter? Probably not. You know, no one responded to it or even had the decency to say, hey, we got it, we'll look into this. But they're relying on authority granted to the CDC to inspect shipping containers and other animals and items that are coming into the United States with the suspicion of them having diseases. Okay, and somehow they're trying to take that and use that as granted congressional authority to mandate that my child wears a mask on a school bus in Maineville, Ohio, and to suggest that that will somehow eliminate the ingression into the United States of a foreign disease or the interstate transmission of that foreign disease. In my letter, I talk about the FDA versus a Supreme Court ruling where the Supreme Court ruled that any sorry, I got worked up on critical race theory tonight. I didn't know that was going to be your thing, you know. But you know, any authority that the federal government tries to exercise must be consistent with that authority granted. Okay, and no way does that extend to school buses. Okay, it extends to in-good property and goods. I'll end with this. I'm a transplant here from the People's Republic of California. Okay? My wife went to King's. I don't say left, we fled that insanity to come to this place. This is a great school district. This is a great bunch of people. This is a great place to live. I'm telling you, as a refuge, do not bring that stuff here.
Next on the agenda, may I have a motion for the consent approval items from the treasurer?
I'll make that motion. I'll second the motion.
Did we have any questions, or Mr. Furness, did you have anything to add, sir? Oh,
I'm sorry.
Let's take the motion first, Mr. Furness.
We got Ms. Phillips and Ms. Cowan. Okay. No, I have no additional information from last week other than we added the minutes from last week. And I know you received some email about a couple of corrections, and I think we've addressed those.
I did want to ask one thing. Karen, could you just clarify, there was a question from the community regarding the expense on the HVAC. Can you just clarify where that was classified? Because the community member thought it was in general, but you did discuss with me how it was from PI. Can you just clarify that a little bit for the community members?
Sure, we had HVAC work at Kings Junior High and at JF Burns Elementary this summer that was paid for from the permanent improvement levy. You can check that or verify that on your check register because the account coding begins with a 003. And so that indicates the capital projects fund versus the general fund, which begins in a 001. And there's two checks on the list this month. One was a small one for parts repair that did come out of general fund. It was $717. The other check was about $295,000, and that was for the boiler chiller work at the junior high in JF Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Furness. Any other questions? That, Mr. Furness, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Egan? Yes. Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Ms. Walter?
Yes.
Mr. Belford?
Yes.
Ms. Cowan?
Yes.
Next on the agenda are the consent to approve items for the superintendent. May I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Furness? Oh, did you get it?
Mr. Egan, Ms. Phillips?
Yes, all right. Did we have any, Mr. Sears?
Yeah, I'll provide just a quick update on where we are with COVID and kind of the return to school. So believe it or not, we are really excited to start school tomorrow morning. And so that's something we're really excited about, looking forward to. Had a great kickoff with our staff yesterday, or 2 days ago. Actually, it was yesterday. It seems like it was 2 days ago. We had a great kickoff with our staff, feeling really good. I know that we're really excited about our kids entering our district and entering the buildings, coming up for tomorrow. So the way we are operating to start school, we are, tomorrow we will have the first half of the alphabet students, and except our freshmen are just at our high school, but our first grade through eighth graders will have A through L. Thursday we have the rest of the other half of the students, and then we'll have all of our high school students in on Thursday. So we're pretty excited about that. Obviously, there's a lot of information that is being shared, that is communicated, changing, and from a lot of different sources. I'll be honest with you, and I'll be honest with our community. I appreciate the passion, energy, and the communication from everyone here tonight. I also, as superintendent, and I think I can speak for the board on this, appreciate the significant amount of email communication that we have received from our families, from a lot of different personal situations to a lot of different opinions. And clearly we're in a really interesting time in not only this district, but in our entire society around where we stand on certain issues. And I will be honest with you, as a superintendent who's recently in this district and recently come into this district, I am a person who all I really want to do is have our kids in school every day. That's it. And I think I'm in a position where I want to do what it takes to make sure that happens. And, I'm not into, as far as different viewpoints, I welcome that. I think it's healthy. I think it's healthy for us to have discussion around those things. And like I said, I commend the people that are speaking tonight. I also commend the significant amount of parents of our community that has reached out to us. We read every single one of those. We take it to heart in all these sides of the issue. And you can see there is changes that are happening across the entire region. It challenges us as leaders every single day. The governor's message today challenged us as leaders that we're having, yes, we think it's parents' choice, but school boards and superintendents, you should have your kids in masks. It is a challenging time where truthfully we are caught in some really difficult circumstances. The last thing that we want to do, and I want to do as superintendent, is to divide any community based on any decision that we make. And what I think you're seeing here is you're seeing authenticity. You're seeing who I am as a person. And I respect everyone's opinion on all of this. But the last thing I want to do is be able to recommend or make a decision that's going to divide us. Instead, we should be uniting around the fact that we want our kids in school every single day. And we need to do what it takes. And it might be uncomfortable. It might be unpopular. It might be a lot of things. But having our kids in school every day is what we have to have. We know that the situation last year in all school districts is very different. It was very different. And we know that our kids thrive best when they're in front of their teacher, right? Last year, yes, we had masks on, and no one truly enjoyed that. But yet it was necessary to maintain in-person learning. Where we are now, we're back in the same discussion or similar discussion without guidance or direction or mandates coming from the governor that, frankly, a lot of folks were anticipating today at 3:30 when he came on. And that's what we listened to. So
everyone's gonna wear masks and go. The TV says they take them off.
Good evening, sir. So I share that, and I share that where we are, and I have no problem leading, recommending, and doing what we need to do, maintain in-person learning. So where we are currently, we've worked with a lot of area superintendents, county area districts, people that are right next to us, people that are near us, that have been in school for a little while longer than we have. What we're experiencing and some of the reasons, I think it's really important to understand, because I've talked to a lot of folks, the reasons the decisions are made to change direction at this point is strictly, and a lot of it has to do with, one, the safety of the kids, but number two, it's the quarantining. There are strict guidance that, and they're not recommendations, these are requirements for how we have to quarantine. We've communicated that last week. The quarantining and what we're experiencing, that's a major issue for us as educators. What that does is it takes students out of school that do not show symptoms, that may not be sick, or that it takes them out of school because of their proximity to a positive person. That's a challenge for us. And that's where area districts are making decisions around that very thing. All the things that were said in this room tonight, all the emails that we get, they're valid in a lot of ways. And I'm not going to debate the politics or science behind any of that. That's not my job. That's not my role. It's certainly not where I am. Keeping our kids in school is priority one. And the quarantining of students is a significant issue. I know that there are districts that have 10, maybe 12 positives, which we will have. But there's the residual of that, it sends 60 to 70 students home for 14 days. And that's the problem. That's what superintendents are wrestling with. That's what boards of education are wrestling with. That's what communities are wrestling with. That we're sending kids home that don't have those, and because they've made the choice to be unmasked and they're unvaccinated, and some of our kids aren't eligible for that. So with that, those are the challenges that we're faced with. That's where we are, and those are certainly why a lot of the decisions are being made. I think it's worthy discussion here for our board to have, and for us to have, is whether or not we move to a K-6 look as well. Our students K-6 are not eligible for vaccinations. We know that, and let me remind folks of what our quarantining and what the quarantining recommendations are, the requirements are. If you are masked and you are within 3 feet or beyond of a person who is positive, which we will have in most of our classrooms, you do not have to quarantine if you are masked. That's the requirements for us when we do contact tracing. If you are vaccinated and you are 3 feet or beyond to a positive person, you do not have to quarantine. If you are unmasked or unvaccinated and you are 6 feet from someone who tests positive, you have to quarantine. So the reality is the school district, Kings Local School District, is not quarantining. We haven't done that. Those are the Warren County Health District. They do quarantining. We are the ones that help contact trace. They order quarantines. So I want to make that very clear. That's not something that we're doing. We hired a contact tracer last year to assist in that process because it was significant. So the issue I think we all have to understand is that the quarantining rules and what we have to follow, that is a major concern. And that's why districts that are further along in the process than us have made that shift. Now, those secondary students, those 7th through 12th grade, the 12-year-olds and older, those students, if they are in and do not want to be quarantined, and maybe they haven't been vaccinated, and they have extracurricular activities, or they have things going on, that's it. This strongly recommended they're in a mask. A district right next to us had to cancel a football game this Friday night because they had students that were in the film room watching film, prepping for this week's game that were considered close contact. They were unmasked, unvaccinated, and they now have to quarantine and so they had to cancel a football game. So we had that happen here last year. None of us want that to happen. Our role and our work is to try to keep our kids in school. So I say all that. I think I want to be authentic with our community. I want to be authentic with our board. This is testing times for us as administration. All we want to do is have school. All our teachers want to do is teach, and we want to keep our kids here. And so that's where we are. I think it's worthy discussion to have for us as a board. And looking at that, looking at where we are, and having discussion about, do we make a move to K-6 masking at this point? So I will turn that over to you, Mr. Belfram, or the board, if you want to have board discussion on this.
I mean, I'll say my piece on it. We as parents have the right to determine what our children's health and safety and concerns are. These Warren County, CDC, the federal government has done a bait and switch on us. They've now taken it, we're not going to do this, but we're gonna throw you in proverbial jail if you don't have a mask on. I'm with you. Kids need to be in school. They need to be in school. I absolutely don't think it's anybody's right to show a card, prove that you're vaccinated, not vaccinated, wear a mask, don't wear a mask. I know what my health is. I know the health of my children. I know their immunity. It shouldn't be in the hands of an educator. This shouldn't be to make you out the bad guy. I feel bad. I feel bad as a board. This shouldn't be in our hands. But they're going to do that switch on us. And I would probably myself then still send my kids to school and wear a mask. I don't agree with what and how they're presenting it. They shouldn't have to, but they're going to take them out of school for 14 days if they do. And they could be perfectly healthy. I could prove it in a day. I could take them to get a test, and it doesn't matter, because that's what they're gonna. It's not us as the board. It's not someone in the school saying you have to quarantine for 14 days. It's the government, and it's one more step that they're taking. Several gentlemen out there spoke to it. I believe them. It's another step to separate us. But I want to have the kids in school. I don't have the answer for it, but that's what's going to happen, and they're going to be out for 14 days. What's that?
You can make that decision.
I can make the decision to say not to wear a mask, but we do know what will happen. If they were, he just spelled it out. If they're within, pardon me?
About political will.
They
don't have this power over us.
No, yes, they do.
They don't have this power.
I think I.
You are giving it to them. This is consent.
No, I agree with you. I agree.
Don't require masks. They don't have this authority.
Okay,
You have given them this
we don't require masks, but then if your child's within that 3-foot range, right?
6 feet.
You say no. You say no.
I don't have that.
You guys have that power.
No, we
You
don't.
do.
If you're doing that, get out of the room. If you're not doing that for us as a community, get out of the room.
You
Well,
don't deserve that spot if you're not willing to stand up.
so let me interject here.
We've seen the
No, I'm willing to stand up. I've stood up before.
Then say behind you. We're not requiring masks. That's what you do.
Okay, so we don't.
They don't have. They don't have that power.
They don't have the legality to do it. It's consent.
I don't have the ability. I can say no mask, and I can vote. We go
I
around.
want you to do it.
Okay, we're not casting the vote right now. I'm just trying to help Mr. Sears put it out there. We can vote no mask, and that's fine. And then we will have the 60, 70. I got beat up for it 18 months ago.
I prefer that than have to watch my son go to school in a mask every day.
Okay, wait, and that's your personal right. I agree with where you're coming from.
Our consequences as parents, that they will have 2 weeks to quarantine. That is our choice. Our choice. Not what we need to do.
I agree.
If we get a letter, then you can vote that way.
I didn't say how I was voting. I'm just trying to explain that.
Mr. Balcom, I'm sorry, can we take a short break? I have to use the facilities.
Absolutely.
Well,
Let's take a brief intermission.
do we need to have a motion on it?
Board's going to recess here at 7:34. You'll reconvene in 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Fair enough. Thank you. Excuse me. It's fine.
Don't lie.
The items, and you're in discussion.
We're on item F, right?
I'm sorry, you are
Oh,
correct.
okay.
You are
lost
correct.
me.
Item F, I apologize.
And we are in board discussion, and again, I appreciate the candor. I appreciate the passion. I reiterate, Mr. Egan, Mr. Sears, we are in board discussion. This is not public participation. So while I do appreciate, again, all the comments, we're going to continue to deliberate.
I'll make it quick.
We're not in public participation, sir. So
Please consider the fact that there's two things. One, COVID's never going to go away ever. It'll always be with us. The second thing I want you to consider is what's next year's school year going to look like when masks are no longer needed and everybody's sick and now half the school's out because they're all sick because they have no immune system anymore. Consider that when you're making your decisions.
So let us proceed with our deliberation. Was there any more further discussion here?
Well, I guess I was just going to say, I mean, I think Mr. Sears brought up a great point. We have just been thrust in this position. I'm 60, 100 years old, and the work that I do, I'm very specialized, and I am an expert at what I do, and I'm good at it, and I work hard. Like with my investments and with selling my house that I probably should have had a realtor and I didn't, but that's another story. I have to look to people that specialize and are experts in what they do. And for me, when I read and when I learn, I go to the people that are at the top of those fields. There is always going to be information that we can support with one side or another. It's everywhere in the world that we live in. So I just have to turn into and have trust in, and I still do, things that the information that the governor has, the Ohio Department of Health, the CDC, and when I look at them, I am seeing the language of strongly recommends. I can't dispute that because that is not my area of expertise. So I just have layers of confidence in those entities to step into what feels like is right according to experts. I think we're in a situation where we can always change. We can dance back and forth as the circumstance changes, but it's time, it's school time, and I'm ready to go. And I just want to make sure we do it based on the information that we're getting. You know, whether we could just debate and dispute it all day, but so that's kind of where I am. I just kind of lean into that kind of information for my guide.
Yeah, listening to Mr. Sears this evening, I would say I had thought a little bit about quarantine, but until it, was smacking me in the head again, I had forgotten about the number of students last year. And for kindergarten through 6,
right?
I would hate to see so many children out and missing school when every day is so very important that they're in the classroom.
I do think the time, Dan, we were talking about quarantining. That I don't think they do have to quarantine for 14 days.
10. It's 10.
Is it 10? But what if they have, I thought it was a lesser number. If they got a shot, couldn't they get a shot? And then if they got a negative, they could go back? Wasn't there like a 5-day thing on that?
Well, I'm going to let Matt Lucky, he's clarified.
Mr. Master.
Yeah.
All right, so. It's green.
Yep.
All right. So the opportunity to get less than 10 days. So if you were to receive a PCR test
on or after day 5, you can come back after day 7.
Okay.
If you chose not to get a PCR test, you can come back after 10 days.
So you could do a week if you had to.
Depending on the day it hit, if you had a weekend in there, if you got that 5-day PCR test, you miss minimal amounts.
When you say PCR, that's not the, I guess that's not the quick test? Is that why we have to do, that's why it's the 7 days?
It takes 24 to 48 hours to get a PCR result back.
Correct.
And how are all these with the quarantining, how is all that regulated? Like you're saying, these different rules, who controls, like who controls when a child can come back or not?
We report to the county health department and they work directly with us. So they get information that they filter to us and then we get information that we filter to them. So back and forth, but they're the ones that gives us that guideline that says 5 days, come back after day 7, or 10 days if you choose not to get the test. Or if you are vaccinated and you're exposed, you're to wear a mask for 14 days. So we get all that guidance and recommendation from the county.
And what happens if somebody refuses to, like, let's say we told them the student couldn't return for X amount of days. What would happen if they sent their children back?
We'd send them home.
What if they wouldn't go? Just asking.
Cross that bridge when we get to it.
Okay, because
it's not happened.
Okay, but if it does happen, I mean, do we have a contingency? I guess that's something that we would need to further discuss.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other quarantine guidance questions?
And isn't there a portion, Mr. Lucky, with regards to, I think if someone who is vaccinated and doesn't have a mask, they don't have to be quarantined, but then they have to wear a mask for a certain number of days?
Correct. So a vaccinated individual in the classroom, if they are a contact and didn't wear a mask, they would need to, they do not miss school. They can continue to attend. It would be required to wear a mask for 14 days or get a PCR test after day 3 as soon as they got results. If they were negative, they would no longer have to wear a mask. If they were positive, they'd be isolated for 10 days.
Okay. So essentially it's 3 days if you're willing to have your child take the PCR test and it's negative then.
If they're vaccinated.
If they're vaccinated. And then I think we talked this last week, Mr. Sear, so how would we track that? If someone had to was in that situation and had to wear the mask for the minimum of 3 days?
Do you want to answer? I can answer.
Mr. Lucky.
Well, Ted, you start.
So our buildings right now are working through a process to know which students are vaccinated and have to they're required to wear a mask for a period of time. So they're working to chart that. It's not going to be depending on the severity and the amount. I think it's something we're working on. I don't know. This was as of the other day. I don't know if you have more information beyond that.
So realistically, you're working with the high school and the junior high. So those two schools are the ones where you're going to have kids that are vaccinated. A lot of it's working with the parents directly and the student, because managing that and tracking that is going to be a challenge. But we will set up a system. We have a system where staff will be communicated with who those contacts are in the classroom as we contact trace. And we'll know who those people are, because the teachers and the school nurse are the ones that do that contact tracing.
Right.
So everyone's on the same page as far as who was a contact in that classroom and what they need to do.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Sears, you shared some numbers last meeting, and I remember it was broken into age groups. What was the age group? What were the numbers that we looked at for this 12 and under group? Didn't you have some information?
As far as the number of current positives in our district?
Not in our district, but in Warren County. Isn't that how it was broken down, just by Warren County?
Yeah, let me pull up if there's another question, let me pull that up to get you the answer.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. So I'm really struggling with this because I understand Rona, to your point, I understand about the experts, I understand. And I understand to Dan's point about family choice. I'm struggling with the social emotional piece for the kids. I've been pretty firm in believing that it should be the family's choice, that we shouldn't require it. But I know we've received from the community so many messages from both sides of the issue. And I understand the concern of people who have said that, that by allowing people the option, that it's really making it not an option. So this isn't an easy choice. And I have to be honest, I'm struggling. I really am. I want to make sure I'm doing the right thing for our families. But I think one of the things is we're in the 11th hour now. We've got kids coming into our buildings tomorrow and teachers. If we were to do this vote tonight, how's that going to look tomorrow? Because we really haven't properly prepared. And for some of the younger kids, they might have needed more time to get used to wearing that mask again. So what is that going to look like? Like if we vote for that today, does that mean tomorrow the kids who come will have to wear their masks?
It's certainly an option for the vote, or if that's the direction you want to go, that we could do that. We would be communicating this evening what that would look like, so parents are informed. So if that's a direction the board goes, then we're certainly prepared to do that.
Will there be opportunities where they wouldn't have to wear their mask?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, and I'll just do a comparison. So last year, there was a universal mask mandate and there was no designation between indoors and outdoors. So it was all the same, treated the same. So now the way it's a little different this year is if we would do this, that it would mainly be within the building. So inside, indoors. So if they were at recess, they could take their mask off and they could run around and we wouldn't be contact tracing that. If the teachers went outside for learning, which they did a lot last year, and I've, in talking to teachers, there was a big piece of, especially the warm weather months where they were outside a significant amount. This would allow them to not have the students with a mask on. So I think there's a little bit more. Last year was very stringent as far as what we can and can't do, and then this would be a little more flexible as far as that goes. That in the classroom and when most of that would happen. When students would be in masks. But there would be more opportunities this year for students to not have a mask on throughout the day.
And if we did have a student or a family who wanted an exemption, what are the rules that somebody could get an exemption? I've heard talk about they're hard to get, but what would cause someone to receive an exemption?
Do you know the answer to that question, Matt?
I do. So we do have a mass exemption form the family fills out, kind of explaining what's needed. Sometimes they provide a doctor's note. Sometimes they provide something else that's gone on with the student. And then that is usually a meeting with the counselor and the family just to talk through it. It has been some of our medically fragile students that because of whatever reason with other things they have going on, the mask just doesn't work. And we've either worked with the family around, can we do a shield? Is there something different we can do? Or work with that family to help them like, okay, we hear you. How else can we then help you if we're not going to wear a mask? What can we do in the classroom to help with the 3 feet, the 4 feet? So last year we did have every building probably maybe had 5 to 10. This year we've had 1 turned in for a student on the bus already.
Okay. And the exemption is a district level exemption, so
Correct.
It does not exempt you from the county protocols, procedures.
And we really, with the exemption, it just helped us then work with the family about, all right, if you're not going to wear a mask because it was so strict last year, what else then can we do with the student and you to help stay in school, work with the family and come up with some other ideas.
What are our classroom ratios at Columbia and our elementary schools? What are we looking at? Teacher in a room, how many kids in a room? Because that is a player as well.
Good point.
On average, in both fifth and sixth grade, we have 27 to 28 students per class.
So that's a pack. What about the elementary schools?
Elementaries depends on grade level. Younger grades in the 21, 22 range, get up to fourth grade, you're looking at 24, 25, 26.
So what grades have that 20-21 ratio?
Kindergarten, first grade.
I mean, can we get creative? I don't know.
Yeah, I think sorry, go ahead, Roman.
No, I just didn't know if we have those spaces. I know little ones, and we have different data and different numbers that pertain to the little ones.
Yeah.
I don't know.
If we go forward with the motion, do we have flexibility as far as we learn more information to rescind things without doing coming back for a special meeting, or should we come back for a special meeting, or can we put that?
Have Mr. Sears have the authority to pull the trigger one way or the other as we proceed through the future?
You can do that as a board if that's, I would say in any recommendation or any movement towards one way or another, I think we should always look at a periodic review of where we are. So I think, for example, if this is a direction the board decides to go with some level of masking, that I would say that we would want to review this monthly and have a discussion monthly, like, okay, where are we? What does this look like? And do we need to continue? And then to your point, Mrs. Phillips, if there is reason to shift that in one way or another in between, that's maybe where you give the superintendent the ability to do that without an additional special meeting or whatever. I think you can do that.
So let's just say hypothetically, let's just say we vote tonight. Can we vote on something that is set up right out of the chute as a temporary piece until the next month comes and then we revisit it, and so that we don't say it's all or nothing forever and always? And because I really would like to get some further information on that kindergarten and first grade. Any of our classes that have those 21 and 20 kids really think about,
with their own
look at what but look at the stats and look at the data and see who's that age bracket. And I don't know. I don't know.
I think in any decision, we would certainly reserve the right to pivot. So I agree with your own. I think, Greg, the challenge that I'm having is just that school starts tomorrow. So we're not giving community much lead time. And I completely agree with you. The news coming out today has made that a challenge. And also, Dana, in lieu of what you just said about we do have this exemption policy, I personally am kind of leaning towards we probably should have maybe a special meeting next week and give the community some lead time to kind of chew on what we're discussing.
Maybe vote on
to the
Monday, vote on I think we need to be fairly, maybe
needs to
even
be-
Friday.
Maybe, yeah, it needs to be
Friday,
quick.
so we can say, okay, Monday, this is where we're thinking.
Yeah, because I think to Dan's earlier point, it's as you mentioned as well, the problem is just the quarantining procedure. So we're going to have, the ability to spread kids out tomorrow and Thursday, but then Friday, we'll have all the students in the buildings. And so then that would then become the challenge of some potential exposures or what have you into next week. So I think we should do it fairly quickly, but I mean, you guys chime in. I just feel like we should give, just as we've discussed it, give some families some time to mull over this before we made a final decision Well,
it
not a
is
final
tonight.
decision, a decision based on the available information we have now, and always reserving the right to change that as we go forward. It's just my opinion.
The other thing, remember the kids on the bus will all be masked, correct?
Oh, that's true. But then, yeah, that's true.
Excuse me.
And it is good that on Wednesday and Thursday, we have smaller class sizes.
Right.
So, and we've discussed that as well. I think, I'm going to follow up on something Mr. Spinner said, but in some of the information, I think what's different this year and is that last year we did have a number of students that were not learning in person within our buildings. And so what that did is it allowed us to spread out to a greater degree. Well, we don't have that option this year. And so then we have 25, 26, 27 students that put into a pretty, we're maintaining distancing as much as we can, but I think that's a real thing. And I think that's in large part why some of the quarantining for a lot of school districts are a concern so early, because you don't have the ability to spread out nearly to what you did in the past. Now, the benefit of how we're starting school is we have half of our students A through L in tomorrow, and this is at that elementary level. We have the rest of the other half of the alphabet on Thursday. Our kindergartners do not report till Monday. So there's a little bit of ability for a day or two that we don't have everyone here. I wouldn't anticipate the quarantining be as significant if there was a positive case on those 2 days. So I think you could assume just based on, half of the students here, that is a helpful thing.
Right.
So when would it make sense to come together then for a final thought on the month, the first month?
Before Friday.
Before Friday?
Least of all, my thinking, if all of the kids are going to
Right.
be there.
Maybe Thursday sometime.
So you're wanting to reconvene. I mean, if we're looking to do a special meeting, in a couple of days, then I don't know, maybe if you guys feel comfortable taking a vote, we make a motion tonight.
As it pertains
I want to
to-
give student
Right.
parents lead time, but
So
if
you-
we're
I
doing
agree with that,
Thursday-
Stacy.
We're doing Thursday, then we're basically saying, okay, well,
Right.
you go to school tomorrow, and then we're gonna make a decision.
So then we could say as of Friday, since we have Wednesday and Thursday, we could make a vote or a motion to make a vote based on it going into effect Friday. And Wednesday and Thursday are flex, and then we reevaluate after a month. And if things look like we could move differently, how do we set it up so that Mr. Sears can just have the authority to make that call? Is there, we did that last year.
Well, at the end of the day, nothing changes as far as what
The quarantine,
Right.
that's true. That's true, Dan.
So, we can try to pivot all we want, but it doesn't change the fact that kids are gonna get quarantined. So
Right.
There's a positive case in a child who's wearing a mask that's within 3 feet. The child wearing a mask does not have to quarantine.
No.
My personal feeling is it's a parent's decision. Different discussions at times, but it ultimately, if they know what the rules are, and I guess if it's to what Deb's point was, if a Warren County sheriff has to come in and drag the kid out of the school, I feel horrible, but that's not my choice. It's not my choice. There are the guidelines that we're trying to follow. They know the deal for their children. They're personally taking it. It would be their only one student. They know that if you're a football player watching film, wear a mask. And you won't get quarantined. And that's their decision. If the football player doesn't want to, I personally can't make that decision. I personally can't make that decision for another person. And I was only stating before, if you're asking me what my decision for my son would be, I would say you want to play football. You love it. You were a great athlete when you went to Kings here. Wear a mask. But that's my choice. That's my choice. And, you know, God love the right tackle that played next to him. He didn't. He's out. He doesn't get to play 11. So, you know, I want us all to agree as a 5 unified vote, but, you know, that's, I just feel it's a bait and switch is what I felt like it was put onto us instead of the government now telling us this is what we had to do. They said, you can make your own decision, but we're going to come from the back door and get you anyhow. And that, to some degree, just puts it on me as a parent in deciding what you want to do. But I can't sit here as a board member and look at everybody here and say, I'm going to decide what you think is going to be okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
But you know the deal.
Yeah. Yep.
And they're going to be taken out of school, and it's probably going to be in those 60, 70 numbers. But they're not my kid. My kid would be in school.
Still not efficacious.
I just feel like with being the night before school, as I said earlier, I don't feel like we've fairly given our families enough time to prepare and to prepare their children. And I know that people have been voicing their concerns, but a lot of the people, there were a group that spoke to me last night, and they were happy, and so they hadn't voiced any concerns because they thought we were allowing families to choose. And I just feel like this is so late in the game, they didn't really have the adequate time to voice. I'm not comfortable voting tonight. I have to say that I have a lot of reservations voting tonight for something that's going to impact students right away. When all along, I know we told people that it's evolving and we could pivot, but I just feel like that it pivoted very quickly at a very bad timing. And so I want to be fair to our families. And I know that, you know, people with medical concerns, I understand them and they have the right to their concerns. But I just feel like that I don't want to rush into this, and I'm not comfortable voting. I'm just going to say
So,
that.
but what we could do is vote, we could collectively vote for Friday start date. You know what I mean? We could vote and say, every parent's paying attention. They're all very well aware. So all we could say is we're going to go to school Wednesday and Thursday, and then Friday, we either agree or disagree.
Well, I'm trying to make
So.
sense of it all because you're wearing a mask. The child is not wearing a mask. This child's okay with the mask. He's staying.
Yeah.
So I don't, again, it's tough to speak up here because I'm not trying to speak for anybody, but I think most parents that have school-aged children have probably made a decision.
Right.
I think they said, I'm sending my kid with a mask. Or I don't want them to. I don't want it to be mandated, but they now know the rules clearly. If you don't wear a mask, you're probably going to get into that tracing thing and you're going to be out. But if you have a mask on, you're good. So, you know, I'm not quite sure where all the other neighboring school districts, I think it's something that makes perfect good sense to me that if you want to guarantee yourself to stay in school, put a mask on. If you snot-laden personality issues that the doctor spoke about, get a waiver So I don't know where it's in all the school districts to mandate that, because they're not requiring a person with a mask on to be out of school. If if they were in close contact, kind of you're good. I've always been in that position. Well, if you got a vaccine, you're good. I mean, it turned out to be a flu shot in essence, but you know, and that's what they're saying. If you got a mask on, you're good. You can stay in school. So for us to mandate it seems counter.
They have to eat lunch and, you know.
It does.
They have to eat it.
It does get a little bit difficult though to manage it. Because every class is, you got that different complexion. So then, you know, you've got teachers check in, and it is quite a spreadsheet of where Johnny goes and if Johnny did or did not. And it adds another whole layer of a lot of time in there to control that and to cover those bases for quarantining.
And yeah, I think, Dan, to the point you were making, and Greg, you correct me, I think what we saw in some other districts when they started school is that you didn't have actually a lot of kids wearing masks.
Right.
Isn't that correct? And so you saw that, well, with the additional guidance, and I agree with you, there's been a bait and switch. You saw some incidents of positive tests, and then you saw a lot of quarantining initially, some of our neighboring districts, and so then they made the pivot. And so I think that we'll have that same challenge. And I know we're hearing a lot from the community. I think we're hearing a lot from potentially one perspective, at least here in the room. But that, to your point, Deb, I mean, we do have to consider that's the conundrum that we have as a board. I know there are a lot of people. We got a lot of emails, a lot of commentary. Some of it gets intensely personal, but we are trying to consider the safety, the needs of 4,600 kids. And that's the challenge. We do have young people who are severely compromised. They don't have a virtual option anymore. And so we have to consider that too. So there is no really one right answer. Unfortunately, the quarantine process is going to be a challenge. But we just don't want to see potentially hundreds of kids have to sit at home for a minimum of 5 days, Matt, before they can come back to school.
That's best case scenario.
Yeah. So I agree with you. I mean, logically, you would say, hey, if you don't want to have to miss school, put the mask on. But I think everything we're saying is valid. I mean, I'm having a difficult time just because kids will be across the street in 12 hours, right? So I think making that vote today and not getting people the opportunity to just prepare for that. I mean, Dr. Max is valid concerns, social, emotional health, the mental wellness. I do feel like we need to give students an opportunity, parents an opportunity to prepare their kids. And Dana, I don't know, if we can accommodate a larger scope of potential exemption requests and how you would handle that. But, just making people more aware of that here publicly and then being able to maneuver through that as well. I just think we might need a little more time here to just for the sake of the community to give them a chance to prepare. I know it's what it'll mean for the five of us. We'll all get inundated with more emails. But all of those comments and opinions, which we do read, and let me just, as an aside, I do apologize. I haven't gotten back to probably 100 people, but it's been that many emails. But I just think we need to give them time to process it before we say we make a motion to.
So do we want to, so
I don't think we should.
So Thursday, I mean, is that what we should do? I mean, if we're gonna vote, we need to vote sooner versus later.
One option could be that we schedule some time next week to let us get in, do some work. I'm not sure, and I say this, I serve at the liberty of the board, but I'm not sure what we'll know that's different now than Thursday. I don't think we'll see a lot different, right? So if we want to set a time next week and then we can come together, we can review where we are and then, or we could do something to that effect. Ongoing communication is important. Transparency is really important in what we're seeing. And then we can see if we need to adjust, pivot, whatever you want to call it. So
yeah, because for me, it's not about any more data analysis in the next 5 days. It's giving parents the opportunity we're talking about prepping 5-year-olds and to 6th grade, giving them the opportunity to kind of just prepare them, since they're all 8th rails going to school, like I said, in 12 hours. Perfect. Just so they can have that. I mean, that's just where I am. Obviously, I serve at the behest of all 4 of you as well. We do this together.
Right.
So.
Well, maybe we just meet on Tuesday because that's when we meet.
Yeah, that will work. That's what you guys are good with that? Or
I think let's throw out a
Peggy,
Tuesday.
are you?
So let's, let me bring you back here to little Robert's Rules of Order.
Yep, absolutely.
So you have a motion from Mr. Egan and Ms. Phillips to approve 2 golf field trips.
Yes.
That's it.
Right.
This is all discussion under Mr. Sears's update. I did not hear a recommendation from Mr. Sears.
No.
So I want to be clear that what you're voting on is 2 golf field trips.
Yes.
If it is the desire for the board to have a special meeting, that requires 48 hours notice. So it's Friday morning. You can have an emergency meeting notice with 24 hours, provided all 5 members sign off and agree. We have the luxury here this evening that you could accomplish that. So if it is the desire for the board to have a meeting next week on Tuesday evening, when you arrive at items from the board tonight, someone would need to make a motion, a second, and a roll call then to establish the time, the date, and the location of that meeting.
Okay.
So
sounds good.
Unless there's questions, so I'm ready to call the roll on 2 golf field trips.
Please call the roll, Mr. Furnace.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Ms. Walter?
Yes.
Mr. Belfram?
Yes.
Ms. Cowan?
Yes.
Mr. Egan?
Yes.
Thank you.
Right, moving forward in item G in the agenda are consent approval items for the assistant superintendent, HR and operations. May I have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion. Mr. Spinner, did you have anything you needed to add to that?
Good evening, President Belfram, King's Board of Education. 3 items recommending this evening. A couple of them we spoke about at our work session. The first one being our King's Education Association Ohio Teacher Evaluation System 2.0. This is obviously in addition to the first iteration, a major change from Ohio Department of Education being high quality student data, which we have the opportunity to pilot this year with some of the programs and systems we already have in place. Item number 2 is a new item from our work session. This is an option license agreement between our King's Firecrackers, our jump rope team, and Linmar Productions. Linmar Productions is very interested in bringing the Firecracker story to the screen. It would be based on our very own retired teacher and coach, Lynn Kelly, who continues to coach the team. For over the past 30 years, she's turned middle schoolers into a jump rope team here in Kings that has performed in front of millions. Linmar Productions has worked in the past with actors and actresses Jennifer Connelly, Tobey Maguire, and Brad Pitt, among others. They've had quite a track record of success. This is a one-picture deal. If there are any back-end benefits, if the movie does well, and they hope to begin shooting in the fall, Kings will get no more or less than anyone else involved with the film. So recommending this particular option license agreement for approval. Final item, personnel items. Mr. Belfram asked me last week if we were fully staffed from a teaching standpoint. I had mentioned we are in the process of a couple of positions. I'm happy to report this evening, all of our classrooms will have teachers in them tomorrow, and they're very excited to welcome our students back for the 21-22 school year. Happy to entertain any questions you may have.
So I have to ask about that elephant in the room. Where do we stand with, I know it's not somewhat relevant to personnel items. Where are we with before and after care?
We've had the opportunity to add a couple of staff members, which have allowed us to bring in additional students to before and after care in a couple of our buildings. We continue to receive applications and interview those applicants as quickly as possible to determine whether or not they're a fit for our program. And we hope to continue to add more and more students to our before and after care going forward. So that is certainly a work in progress, but I have to give a lot of credit to our staff downstairs in our before and after care, and also in all of the 3 buildings to our leads, because they are working tirelessly and putting the time in to try to find people that we can use to staff and welcome our students into before and after care in all of our buildings, our elementary buildings.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Belfram.
What is our status on the bus drivers? Are we covered on that?
No.
No, we don't.
See our Director of Business Affairs nodding his head in agreement.
Mr. Ruffin
Yes.
says we're good. Thank you.
Any further questions? Mr. Furness?
Ms. Walter,
Yes.
Mr. Belfram,
Yes.
Ms. Cowan,
Yes.
Mr. Egan,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Benner. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items for the Assistant Superintendent with regards to?
That is a first reading, Mr. Belfram.
Oh, it's a
So there'll
first
be no
reading.
action required.
You are absolutely correct. I apologize. Mr. Furness?
So I can just present. I don't think we need to have.
Yes, you can, Mrs. Martin.
Good evening, everybody. So I'm going to give you a summary of 3 books that we're doing a first reading tonight. We're going to give you a summary of them, the classes they'll be taught in, and a brief description. You have opportunity to grab all 3 books if you want from us. We'll have them for you at September's work session. That's when we'd have discussion. We'll do another brief presentation to you, entertain any questions you have, and then we would vote on them in September. So that's the process. The 3 books, and you have this from you, is The House on Mango Street, The 21 Indispensable Qualities of a Leader, and Best College Admissions Essays. These are all 3 for the high school and English classes and in the leadership class. We've provided a description. I'm not going to read it all to you. You all have it. If you want one of the books, talk to me or Matt, and then we will have a discussion at the work session in September. Unless you have any questions about the process tonight. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Next is items presented by the board. Mrs. Walter, I believe you had some news to share.
Yes.
I didn't know if you want to take the action item on the annual business delegate.
Yes,
and
let's do
alternate
that first.
Okay, let's do that first. So may I have a motion to approve the delegate appointment for the annual business meeting?
I'll make that motion.
I'll
Yeah.
second that motion.
And to just help the board recall, Ms. Cowan is the delegate, Mr. Belfram is the alternate.
Absolutely.
All right.
Ms. Walter?
Well.
No, I'm calling the roll, I'm sorry.
Oh, yes.
Unless you would like to be the delegate. Mr. Belfram?
Yes.
Ms. Cowan?
Yes.
Mr. Egan?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mrs. Walter, you have the floor.
All right, thank you. Well, I think as some of you know, we did sell our house without a realtor. And it is closing on September 10th. So as a result, I will no longer be able to serve on the board. And I know that we have some options. I believe since there are only a few months left, 4 to be exact, And since it is a time of election and there's people running for the board, I know we have some options. I think under those circumstances, it's probably best to find somebody with board experience to step in for that time. I don't know what you all think, if you favor that position. I think it's just going to be a lot easier with everything going on in our district to find somebody that already has that kind of experience and just vote on them collectively. Hey, maybe we could even do it at the special meeting.
Perhaps.
I don't know, whether any disagreement with that thinking, or do you all think
You
that's?
would need to, with a board vacancy, you have 30 days from the effective date of your resignation. The first 10 days of that period, the board cannot take action.
Right.
After that 10-day period expires, you must appoint someone at the board's next, usually regularly scheduled meeting, or frankly,
I
any
see.
scheduled meeting.
So right now then, okay, so this is getting tricky. So what I need to do, if we have our special meeting on Tuesday.
We can't appoint someone at that meeting.
No, I know. I get that. But if I'm here to vote on Tuesday, then what does that do in terms of my resignation? Like, how should it be dated?
Whatever date between now and September 10th,
But does that still allow us to go through
a
the?
board member is permitted to future date a resignation. That is permissible.
Okay,
But that date is binding. Once you submit a resignation, it cannot be rescinded.
okay. So.
But
I
that 10-day clock, though, it starts like when she puts it in, not on the future date.
It would start on the future date, is my understanding.
Oh.
So for example, if it was effective September 10th,
Right.
the blackout period or cooling off period would be from that date for 10 days, which we, let's call that the 20th of September. So the first possible date that the board could appoint a member to the board would be September 21st.
Gotcha.
So.
So I need to alter my September 10th date then probably.
Why?
On resignation.
Well, it would certainly, any change from what you described would only be earlier.
Right. Right. Got it.
And you could submit that to the board president. That does not have to be, resignations do not have to be accepted by action by the Board of Education.
Okay, so that's something that I turn to Mr. Belfram versus Mr. Sears.
Correct.
Okay,
Or myself.
okay. All right.
Meaning you can, I can accept it as the secretary of the board.
Absolutely.
So do you all feel comfortable with moving in that direction? In terms of just
Yeah,
finding somebody and-
I think we can appoint someone who's had some experience per the rules and finish out the calendar year. I think I'll say it. I don't think it would be prudent for us to appoint anyone who may be on the ballot.
Right.
Who is not currently already residing on the board. So
Right.
yes, I would think, that would be in our best interest to find someone who can serve in that role to the end of the year. So yeah, unless anyone disagrees.
So how would that work? Would we, if we knew a perspective, like people who've been on our board or still part of our community, would we bring those people up, or is there someone we have in mind that we'll discuss at a future point, or?
I think if there are people that we have in mind, we will discuss that.
Okay.
As it is going to be an appointment, right? Because we don't need to do interviews. So we
Correct.
can
I mean, you
discuss
can make
those
an
internally.
appointment. So to give you some idea, let's, if you want to model a timeline. So if you use September 10th, you have a work session on September 14th. You could talk to an appointee or appointees or candidates or whatever the process the board desires. However, since you would not be eligible to appoint a replacement person at the 14th because you would be inside your 10 days. You would then have a meeting the following week, the 21st, which would be the next regularly scheduled meeting of the board. That's outside of your 10 days, but within the 30. So you would be required to appoint someone at the regular meeting in September.
Right. So I think
if anything works earlier than that, then you're working back from your September 14th meeting. So and then the same process I just described would apply.
Right.
Clear
You
as
got
mud.
that, Stacy?
Clear as mud.
Clear as mud.
As far as discussions, like, let's say that there were two people with board experience that we want to consider, is that something we would have to discuss in executive session, or would we discuss it in a regular meeting? How would that work?
Your legal counsel's advised that that would be something you can do in executive session if the board desires. You could also do it in a public session as well. But you have that, the board has that option.
Okay.
Okay. So we don't really have to make any motions or
No.
have any further discussion about it at this time?
No.
Did we vote on, I'm sorry, there's been so many things. Did we vote on having or already establishing our meeting for next week yet?
No, we're waiting to finish this.
Well, are we finished? Do we have to go further? I did want to share some feelings. May I?
Of course.
All right. So I'm going to read it because if I don't read it, I'll start to wander. I do want to say it has really been an honor working with all of you, and you are who I will miss the most. A little bit more than 4 years ago, I was contacted by some people to run for the school board. And I work, like all of us, have a pretty demanding job, and it was July and nobody was running. But I also know how critical and important it is on the school board. And the reality is Kings has given me so much. I mean, I can't even put into words. I had 3 kids that came through here. And when I sat down to run, I literally made a list. I talked to my kids and I had over 100 teachers and staff of people that loved on and helped my kids learn. It was amazing. And to this day, I mean, my youngest is 24. These people are still in their life. They'll get an email. They'll see them out in public. I can't say enough about, I just can't say enough about Kings. Is it perfect? No. But it is just means so much to me. So it's so much more than academics. I just want to say a couple things. I really could speak forever on these people. But it's also been telling sitting on the board. For people to come into this room and say things that they do, that we're dumbing down on academics and we're not doing this right and we're not doing that right. Honestly, it's so hard for me to sit here sometimes straight-faced when I know the very opposite is true. All of my kids and thousands of others have left this district beyond well-equipped for the future, whatever they had in store. And this regular rhetoric is disrespectful not only to the teachers and the staff and the administration, but our hardworking students. Year after year, Kings graduates kids who go into the workforce, the military, and literally collect hundreds of thousands in scholarships to top schools. Our Kings alumni are in varied professions and give back to their communities in vast ways. And these are the testaments to how well Kings works. On a personal level, as I've already said over and over again, how thankful I am that this Kings family has helped me with my kids. If we were not moving, I would be out knocking on doors to run again and be a part of this. On a different note, what a bonus it has been to be on this side of things. I hold this group in the highest regard. I have high expectations for myself and those I do work with. So these people meet that bar and then some. They work hard, they're bright, and most importantly, know their jobs and do them well. We are so fortunate. Having said all that, herein lies the reason behind my words tonight. We have another board election coming up that I believe is critical. And these are significant times, as we've seen here tonight. And there are great responsibilities. And I am asking all of us to be mindful and informed voters this fall. And most importantly, just to vote, but to be aware of what intentions people have. My intentions to serve were to support our community. I contributed as an educator, a taxpayer, and a longstanding member of the community that believes in this district. I have no personal agenda, nor was I obsessed with any one issue. And by support, I don't mean I rubber stamp everything anyone says. It means that I listen, I collaborate, we overview and work together. And that's what we try to teach our kids. We have people that are running that I don't believe support my vision. In the years that I have served, some people have continually fought against all things Kings, and there's no better way to put it. It's not a matter of disagreement. We are always going to disagree. Mr. Egan and I disagree on many things, but I have vast respect for him. So there's nothing wrong with that, but to keep going against the schools is just hard, I think, for these people that sit here. In last month alone, we had one person that requested public records 11 times. One such request at the end of the school year literally took one of our teachers 3 full work days to complete. It's just a drain. So there is this notion that we're not being transparent. We're trying to deceive people. It is exhausting, and it's not who we are. If you listen to our board meetings and look at our financial forecast, we are doing the work. Kerry Furness is one of the best treasurers in the state. He has over 30 years experience, and it shows. He's literally invested and saved the district, not thousands, but over $1 million. And to say he's an expert is an understatement, but yet he is under constant scrutiny. And if we allow this anti-narrative to make decisions for our district, I think we're not going to be seeing a student-centered direction or what's in the best interest of all people. Schools matter, people matter, and that is why I've served. So I'm just asking people to be mindful and pay attention at the election box. And one last shout out to every teacher, counselor, administrator that has given my family so much. Thank you. And it's not peace out, because I guess I'm going to be here next week. So thank you.
And I just wanted to tell you that, each person on this board I had a connection with before joining the board, and you were one that your youngest child was on my soccer team. I love her to death, but it's been a pleasure to work with you. We don't always, think alike,
right?
But we work together well, and I've so appreciated the time I've gotten to know you better and work with you on the board.
Thanks,
and thank you for your service to the community.
Thanks, Deb. I'll see you next week.
Yes, you will.
Yeah, I'll save mine for next week
All right. Thank you.
if we're so inclined.
Yeah. I guess I should have said saved my farewell as well.
So with that, can I introduce a motion?
You certainly can.
I'd like to introduce, or may I have a motion for us to have a special meeting next Tuesday to discuss mass policy. Do I need to set an agenda or just to
Typically,
have?
for a special meeting, you are required to
That's what I thought.
provide notice. I would recommend maybe something broader, such as COVID protocols. That way you have some latitude in your discussion, depending upon what you may learn or find out.
What he said.
So you're looking at August 25th. You also need to set time and location.
Wednesday?
24.
I'm sorry, 24th.
24th.
Mrs.
That's
Phillips.
Tuesday.
I'm glad somebody's paying attention.
Oh, no, that Wednesday, I couldn't do it.
I can't do that Wednesday either.
Yeah.
I got a very important appointment.
Yes, you do.
So we're Tuesday, August 24th.
At what time?
Want to do 6, 5:30, one of our regular times.
5:30.
I can do
Can you do
Okay.
5:30?
Here,
Yes.
conference room 2.
Can I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
Ready to roll?
Yes. Mr. Furnace, please
Mr.
call. the roll.
Belfram,
Yes.
Ms. Cowan,
Yes.
Mr. Egan,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Ms. Walter.
Yes.
Thank you. And may I have a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting?
I will make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
Ms. Cowan,
Yes.
Mr. Egan,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Ms. Walter,
Yes.
Mr. Belfram.
Yes.
We're adjourned at 8:42. Thank you and have a good evening.